Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 18.3 has been out to the public for a couple weeks now, but there's even more to talk about since the iOS 18.3 is out. What's new video? We'll talk about some Apple news, what to expect this coming week as we expect some new updates and products, as well as the overall experience now that we've had some time to use it. And not just my experience, but your experience based off the YouTube community poll. At the time of this video, there's over 15,000 votes and 207 comments, and I've gone through all the comments to determine what the experience is like for everyone. So be sure to stick around toward the end of the video as we'll go over some of those comments individually. Now, the first thing this week, Apple released a new app. We knew this was going to release. The new Invites app is out, and I went over a thorough introduction of it, what it's capable of, and then they actually updated it with bug fixes. And this does hint at what iOS 19 could look like. It has a lot of translucency, some changes to the overall menu, and just sort of refinements throughout. So maybe we'll see that redesigned. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. Apple has been ordered in the UK to create a backdoor into iCloud, according to the Washington Post. This is a pretty crazy order that would force Apple to create a backdoor to allow for all encrypted data in iCloud to be available to the UK government. A spokesperson said one of the people briefed on the situation, a consultant advising the United States on encryption matters, said Apple would be barred from warning its users that its most advanced encryption no longer provided full security. The person deemed it shocking that the UK government was demanding Apple's help to spy on non-British users without the government's knowledge. A former White House security advisor confirmed the existence of the British order. So Apple may just go ahead and remove iCloud from the UK. They may comply with the order like they have in other countries such as China. Maybe they'll have separate servers there. We don't really know what they're going to do with this, and technically they're not supposed to say what they're going to do with it. But if we see iCloud disappear in the UK, well, we would know why. They typically don't pay attention to many of these orders, at least in the United States, so we'll have to wait and see what they do with this. There were also some apps found this week that contained some malware that could look at your screen and record it. This actually has been fixed. Apple removed those particular apps, and thankfully they're no longer here, but some of them somehow slipped through the cracks as Apple approved them and were sometimes able to record your screen. So I'm glad they're gone, but hopefully there's not more sitting there. This week, Apple also raised the price of AppleCare Plus for iPhones in the USA. It went up 50 cents, so now it's $10.49 per month instead of $9.99 per month if you're paying for AppleCare Plus on your phone. It's not a huge jump, but it is a slight increase, and I'm not sure why they had to do that. Apple added new features in iOS 18.2, allowing you to share AirTag locations with airlines and those you trust. More airlines are now adopting the feature to help you locate your luggage. This week, Virgin Atlantic, Lufthansa, Swiss, Austrian Airlines, Brussels Airlines, and Eurowings now utilize the feature and even have support pages to help you do this. If you go into Find My, you'll see you have the option to share your item location, and once you do that, you can share it with someone you trust. Different websites, like I mentioned, actually have instructions on how you can do this, how to report delayed baggage and more, and even track them with your AirTag. So you can share your AirTag on different websites. This is Virgin Atlantic, and it gives you instructions on what you need to do. So it's great to see more and more companies adopting this, helping us locate our luggage if maybe we're having an issue with it. Let me know if you've used that in the comments below. One quick update is if you're using the Google app like I do often, they now have finally adopted dark mode. So it quickly switches between light and dark mode depending on what you're using. It took a very long time for them to adopt this, but they finally have it. So if you're using it, you'll see that change. Apple is launching a new activity challenge for Valentine's Day. It says show your heart some love, close your exercise rings this Valentine's Day, February 14th, to earn this award. There's also some new stickers they'll have as well, and I'll link this in the description if you'd like to check it out for yourself. Apple built a little robot this week as they're working on new home products, and Apple published a video on their machine learning website demonstrating what you can do with expressive motion sequence generation for humanoid robots in context with learning. So I'll link this in the description, but there's kind of a lengthy video here where you can see what looks to be similar to what we have with a Pixar lamp that has a personality. So that's something you can watch here, see what it looks like. They go through details of how it could work, and this hints at what many people have been rumoring for some time, is that we could have an on-device or on-table device that maybe replicates a HomePod, a screen, and has an arm that might follow you around and have a personality. This could be sort of something whimsical we haven't seen from Apple in a while. So It may be a few years until we see it, but at least they're publishing research about what they've learned about it and how it works. As far as upcoming features, many have asked me, what can we expect with the next versions of iOS? Well, I've talked about this before. We do expect some new emoji to comply with the latest Unicode standards, such as a harp and some other things. And according to 9to5Mac, a future update will actually enhance screen recording, allowing for stereo audio recording, HDR video, and picture-in-picture using multiple cameras. We should also be getting default maps and translation apps in the EU and PayPal support in Apple Wallet. So all of those things are expected, along with Apple Intelligence updates probably in iOS 18.4, with priority notifications, updated Siri hopefully, possible updates we didn't expect, and hopefully some updates for older devices as well. Not just Apple Intelligence, but maybe some changes here and there. But we're not hearing a whole lot about iOS 19, so that makes me think maybe we are going to get some sort of redesign, or at least some overhaul. So at this point, I don't really know if we're going to see that, but it looks like something we could see in the near future. Now, we also expect a hardware release very soon, replacing the iPhone SE 3rd generation with one that looks more like the iPhone 14, but is the iPhone SE 4th generation. This could be launching as soon as this week, according to Mark Gurman. One of the updates is we know it's going to look similar to the iPhone 14. It should have an action button, but no camera control, and it should have a new modem in it designed by Apple. Whether or not that's just Wi-Fi or 5G or both, we don't know, but it looks like we are going to have some sort of update there, and that will be the start of Apple-made modems. We should also have one singular camera at 48 megapixels, and then a similar design to this with USB-C, along with an OLED display and a notch, not a dynamic island, according to all of those in the know. So at this point, it looks like we could get that as soon as this week. Maybe we'll have pre-orders this coming Friday with a launch the following Friday. We're also seeing lower rates of stock for the iPads, so we could see the iPad and iPad Air refreshed as well. So maybe an M3 processor in the iPad Air, and maybe an update to the iPad 11th generation. Releases this week probably will be a couple different ones. Apple stopped signing iOS 18.2.1, meaning you can only downgrade to iOS 18.3. We had an iOS 18.3 re-release or revision 1, and that was only available to the iPhone 11, 11 Pro, and 11 Pro Max. We don't know exactly what reason there was, but they did release it, and it was only available to install through a Mac or a Windows computer. However, we do expect iOS 18.3.1 should be coming very soon to patch security issues and maybe some bugs. Mac Rumors confirmed it as they show it in their analytics. This means, usually when we see them confirm this, that we'll have it within a week or so released to the public. We could see it as soon as Monday or sometime early this week. However, it could be the following week as well. But if we do get an iPhone SE 4th generation and iPads, I would expect it as soon as Monday. I also would expect iOS 18.4 Beta 1. I thought we'd have it already, and it seems a little bit later than we've had in previous years. However, we have had years where we have about a 50-day gap between the previous update and the 0.4 update of whatever the current version is. So we could see a longer release cycle this time around, but either way, Mark Gurman says we could see it as soon as this week. So I think we'll see it finally this week. Now, like I mentioned before, iOS 19 has very little information, and we'll see that for the first time typically in June at WWDC. Apple will show iOS 19 Beta 1, typically release it to developers and public beta testers a couple weeks later, and that could be on June 2nd or the 9th. Usually around the March-April timeframe, we know when WWDC will take place. Apple gives details to that, and then they send invites to media a little bit later. So at this point, we should see something a little bit different, I think, since we haven't heard many things about any leaks. When it comes to battery life, well, there's still no sign of battery intelligence. We don't know if it's going to be in iOS 18.3.1, 18.4, or maybe Apple got rid of it. But that basically means if you plug in your iPhone, it would tell you how much time there is left to charge. We have that on the Mac. There's no real reason we shouldn't have that on the iPhone. And at this point, it seems a little odd that we don't have it yet, but maybe they want to make sure it's very accurate. When it comes to battery life itself, well, I've been using a couple different phones, reviewing different phones, but some of you have sent in your battery life as well. Let's take a look. Thanks to Cameron for sending in his battery life, and this is on an iPhone 16 Pro Max with 100% battery capacity. He had 3 hours and 53 minutes of screen active time, 1 hour and 56 minutes of screen idle time, with 48% of his battery remaining. The day before, he had really great battery life, 9 hours and 3 minutes of screen active time, 2 hours and 25 minutes of screen idle time, and used about 85% of his battery. so we probably would have gotten at least 10 hours of screen active time. That's pretty phenomenal, and many of you have said that iOS 18.3 has better battery life than any iOS 18 version before. 84% based on last week's poll. There are some people that say it's worse, but most people say it's better. Those that say it's worse usually just reinstalled it recently or installed it and it's still processing. And then there are a few exceptions. We don't know if it's apps causing issues or not, but a reboot typically fixes that issue. Apple also sent Cameron feedback specifically saying that they fixed battery in iOS 18.3. You can see that here, and let's take a look at my battery life. Now, I've actually been testing out the iPhone 16 Plus for a couple days just to see what it's like. We'll go into settings, go to battery health. This one only has 4 cycle counts at 100%. My 16 Pro Max is still at 100%, but if we go and check here, I'll put both of them as far as the overall battery health statistics. I have 122 cycles at 100% capacity. And if we go back, you'll see I stopped using it a couple days ago full time. And yesterday I had 5 hours and 1 minute of screen on time on the 16 Plus, 6 hours and 41 minutes of screen off time, and it was still processing in the background. It told me that on the display. Today, 2 hours and 50 minutes. So it actually went down. But either way, it actually has been getting me through the day most of the time. Today, I'm down to 40% toward the end of the day, and it's doing just fine for my normal usage. So it really varies greatly, but Instagram and Messages is using the most. On the other device, it was home and lock screen and TikTok. Now, I do miss having the always on display, but I'll talk more about that in a different video. When it comes to bugs, well, there's quite a few bugs. There's a crazy wallpaper bug I shared on Twitter or X, and let me show you that now. You'll see that here, where it was sort of switching on its own. All I did was change the focus mode I was in, and then the phone just started to do this on its own. So I was setting up the other phone, switched focus modes, and it seemed to go through every single wallpaper on this phone, and it was super slow. After it completed, it was fine, but that's a new bug I haven't seen. I've also seen a lot of lag on the 16 Plus, but not the 16 Pro Max. And I don't mean because of ProMotion or the lack thereof. It just sometimes seems to be fairly laggy. If we go into music and swipe home, some people see lag regularly, even on the 16 Pro Max. CarPlay has some times where it has no sound at all when you're connected wirelessly, and others have mentioned this as well. Swiping home stutters, as I mentioned before, and it looks like they fixed the touchscreen bugs for most, but if you have a screen protector, it still isn't fixed. I'm seeing people that don't have screen protectors on don't really have as many issues, but some people have said it's still not perfect. The wallpaper bug is still there, so if we swipe home, then go back, you'll see it sort of desaturates just a little bit, but it still does it for sure, and that's still there. Prior to this, it resaturated or saturated more. Notification sounds are not working for everyone. However, make sure those are set up properly in your focus modes. Some still see micro stutters. I've actually had the camera go into just a blank screen before. That's still an issue. And some have call volume issues when it's louder than it should be. Also, there's a call failure issue from time to time. If you place a call, sometimes it could fail, sometimes it goes through, but we're seeing this repeatedly, and I've had a few people test this on iOS 17.7.2. It wasn't there. With iOS 18, it was, with phones side by side. So some odd bugs, nothing that's horrible, but some really big annoyances that they need to fix. However, it does seem that it is very good in general, and performance overall, if you're not having those micro stutters, is nice and fast. So things such as scrolling with ProMotion, it's ramping up and down as you would expect. Smooth, but the animation is just slow because that's what Apple chose. But going into different apps, music is fine. Going into maybe using the camera control and opening the camera, it's nice and fast. Going into weather, everything seems to be very quick overall, unless you have those stutters, and then a reboot fixes that. When it comes to the heat, both of these phones are running nice and cool. In fact, cooler than they have been even last week. So they've been done processing for a while. Let's take a look with the thermal camera. On the 16 Pro Max running iOS 18.3, we're at about 31 degrees Celsius. On the 16 Plus, at the hottest point, we're at about 29.8 degrees Celsius is what I saw. So nice and cool. Now it jumped up to 30, but nice and cool overall. And I'm surprised how nice and cool they're staying. Other than when you're charging, which it will heat up a little bit, they stay nice and cool just using them regularly. So that's great news. When it comes to benchmarks, I did run them, but let me run them again quickly and we'll take a look. All of them are running iOS 18.3 or iPadOS 18.3, the public release, and the latest version available for each one. From left to right, we have the M4 iPad Pro 13-inch. Then we have the iPhone 11, iPhone 16 Plus, and iPhone 16 Pro Max. This gives you an idea of what you should be seeing on your device, and some of the multi-core scores are the highest we've seen in a while. So you'll see that here. We did score a little bit higher in previous updates with iOS 18.3 betas, but in general, it's well within the margin of error and great scores overall. And I'm seeing that across the board with iPad and more. Now let's go ahead and take a look at what you had to say about the overall experience. Hanzala Fayez said, I've been running iOS 18.3 on my iPhone 15 Pro and it's been amazing. Battery gets me through the day just fine and I've had very little issues whatsoever. There have, however, been a few touch issues where the phone glitches out and nothing on my screen works. This happens very rarely, but it's still annoying. Apart from that, battery has improved just that bit more from iOS 18.2.1. Great update overall, apart from the touch bug. Leander Jeff 1 said, I'm running iOS 18.3 on my iPhone 16 Pro Max and the battery life lasts all day. Mr. Austin C. Felt said, I've been running iOS 18.3 on my iPhone 13 mini and it's been great. Battery is getting me through the day just fine. I'm having no issues. SLTF Krish 8926 said, iPhone 12 on iOS 18.3. After the update, my battery life has improved and running smoothly. Baghira 394 says, I long resisted not to update for iOS 18 for my 13, but I'm glad the latest version has turned out to be on par with 17.7.2 in terms of smoothness and battery life. No glitches so far, and hope it remains as it is until iOS 19. Etienne Topham Art, hopefully I pronounced that properly. The update has been great thus far. Battery is stable, no major problems. Looking forward to see what the new beta 18.4 is going to bring to the table. Am I the only one constantly refreshing every weekday? Ah yes said, battery has been great on my 15 Pro running iOS 18.3. I normally charge it to only 80% and it gets me through the day and some extra using my phone for productivity and light gaming here and there. As far as bugs, I've had a touch problem where nothing on my screen works, but it only happened to me once, and other than that, everything seems fine. Storage has been pretty good overall, no real issues there, but it does take up quite a bit if you're using Apple Intelligence. You can turn that off to recover some of it, but 12.01 gigabytes for iOS itself, 6.25 gigabytes for Apple Intelligence, so 18.26, and system data jumps up and down as needed. Prior to this, when I was looking at it, it was around 5 gigabytes. It can go up and down as it needs that storage. You'll see it just jumped there in an odd way as well. So that is the verdict on iOS 18.3 after using it for about 2 weeks or so. It seems to be pretty good. There's always these little bugs here and there that Apple needs to work out as far as refinement. Maybe they're waiting for iOS 19. Hopefully that's something we see. Maybe it will be the next update. But at this point, it looks like they do have some more focus going on there, at least with Siri and Apple Intelligence, as they've brought in someone else in a leaked memo where they're bringing in an executive that's been there for a while to fix those issues and really help focus software. So hopefully this trickles over to iOS 19 or just future iOS 18 updates as well. Now, if you found any additional issues or features or changes or anything else I haven't mentioned in this video, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. And of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do. If you haven't subscribed already though, please subscribe. And if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.